Hello there! So it's been a month and a half since I've uploaded on this channel, so I'd like to do some quick housekeeping for my subscribers since I don't have the community tab yet. If you're new here and just here for the game reviews, go to this point in the video. So yeah, while I've had bouts of uploading droughts over the past few years, I wanted to shout out that I've actually been working on videos for other channels, which has taken away attention from my own. All are related to SEGA, so if you are new and didn't skip ahead, you may still be interested in them. Over on Find the Computer Room, I teamed up with big-time YouTuber The Golden Bolt to review Team Sonic Racing for the PS4. We had such a good time doing that we also decided to just go ahead and rank every Sonic racing game. You can catch that video over on his channel. Lastly, over on Game Explained, I did a video review for Judgment, the latest game from Ryuga Gotoku Studios. All of this has left my channel a bit dusty, but I've been busy, rest assured. If you enjoy what I do on this channel, you should go check out all of those other fun things. I had a great time making them. Also, in August, Fund the Charity Room will be making a grand return with its License to Chill event. If you like bad memes and good causes, go get caught up on that. If you skipped ahead, welcome back! The SEGA AGES releases continue to be weird. Just recently, Virtual Racing and Wonder Boy in Monsterland were released in the West on the same day that Space Harrier came out in Japan. If you've been paying attention, you'll realize that the Western schedule skipped Puyo Puyo. There has been some speculation as to why, but personally I side with thinking it's just been pushed back a bit so as to not compete with Puyo Puyo Champions' recent launch. I have videos covering every prior SEGA AGES release, so if you happen to be curious about other releases, check out the playlist card in the top right, and consider subscribing if you wind up liking this video to catch more in the future. Wonder Boy in Monsterland. Developed by Westone and released in 1987 via an arcade cabinet, and in 1988 as a Master System release, it's part of a cult classic series that's seen a weird resurgence in recent years. It's actually a sequel to the original game, Wonder Boy, but you don't need to have played it to play this one. The plot is simple. A dragon has taken over the land, and you've got to put a stop to that. Widely regarded as one of the best titles on the Master System, this game definitely has earned its place in the SEGA AGES lineup. It's a side-scrolling action game where you start with nothing and defeat monsters to gain gold to use on better equipment and items. Most of the interface here is pretty self-explanatory. The one quirk that may need explaining is this hourglass. See, when it runs out and flips over, you lose some of your life. You can replenish it by finding hourglasses in the levels, but it's simply there to motivate you to keep pushing forward. Enemies do respawn after the screen scrolls back far enough to see them again, so I imagine the main point here was to keep you from grinding out money at the start of the game and invalidating some of the difficulty. That said, there are some unintended quirks you can take advantage of to rack up a lot of additional gold. There's a weird thing called the waggle trick, where you can move your joystick left and right at a fast enough pace to gain extra gold in secret spots it appears from. I'm new to this game, so this is something I learned due to one of this release's new features that simplifies this quirk down to a single button press. Having more gold to use on revival potions, better armor, and better weapons will absolutely help the game be easier, so this is an interesting take on M2's usual accessibility modes. It's not a flat-out easier difficulty, but it does help things be easier. On the opposite side of this coin, there's a new game mode called Money Hungry Mode, which corrects this mechanic entirely and prevents it from being performed at all. I hesitate to call this a hard mode, as it doesn't affect the balance of the game in any other way, but it's definitely more of an inherent challenge. That said, if you were like me and didn't really know how to perform the waggle trick in the first place, this extra mode really doesn't offer anything notable. If you're a fan of the game already and this mode sounds appealing to you, please let me know down in the comments. I'm curious if this is something that has you excited, or if it's just kind of whatever to you as well. The one great optional feature here is the choice to keep your equipment in a new run after dying, which I really can't imagine playing the game without. While this game's new Ages mode may lack in comparison to others in the lineup, this release does have the distinction of having the most challenges to partake in for bragging rights. First off is the Sphinx Challenge, which pits you against the Sphinx. This thing is a certifiable jerk. Looking online, he is a skippable boss in regular play, and I think I can see why some people tend to do it. Segmented away into an optional trial for leaderboards, though, It fits perfectly and let me see a part of the game I may not have otherwise. The second challenge is the Monster Castle Challenge, which is just a time attack that takes place in the game's final dungeon. You're equipped with some pretty great stuff. It was pretty motivating to see just how good the later equipment is compared to the early game items. And lastly, there's the Fireball Challenge, which, put broadly, makes you Fire Mario, except you die in one hit. You can only shoot fireballs, which lock onto enemies, so if the main game is frustrating you, this is a great stress reliever. And that basically covers this release of Wonder Boy in Monsterland. To cut to the chase, if you like retro games and an old school challenge, I think this is a pretty easy recommendation. The game is definitely challenging with some classic quirks, and the first boss is literally against death, so you know it doesn't play around. That said, for someone less inclined and who is also maybe more into modern games, I'd actually recommend first trying out Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap, the gorgeous remake of Wonder Boy 3. It's a great game with a lot of the same core ideas, with fun features like a graphics toggle. If you wind up liking that, I'd feel much more comfortable suggesting you then come back to this one and giving it a shot. For existing fans, I think the main selling point of this release will just be that it's portable. The 3 challenges are fine enough, but compared to other Ages releases, this one is more noteworthy for the game itself than the additions M2 made. Your mileage may vary on this one. Which brings us to Space Harrier, a game that needs no introduction as it welcomes us to the fantasy zone. What can be said about Space Harrier that hasn't already been said? Well, I think Space Harrier should be on Taco Bell's secret menu. That's one thing that hasn't already been said about it, technically. Released in arcades all the way back in 1985, Space Harrier is one of the most iconic arcade releases of all time, and still stands strong as one of the absolute best. Its combination of dazzling graphics, weird worlds, catchy music, and bad but somehow also good shooting mechanics make it as captivating today as I imagine it had to be back then. I'll bury the lead here, but if you haven't played Space Harrier, it's time to play it. This Sega Ages release carries over some of the 3DS features like authentic widescreen, a level select, and the final boss from the console release integrated into the arcade release, which are nice features to see return. One of the new draws here is an interesting one, titled Komeinu Barrier Attack. Komeinu are lion dogs. You've likely seen statues of them at some point. This basically sees your character with Komeinu by their side, forming a protective barrier around you to shield you from damage. If either one of them takes a hit, though, the barrier dissipates and you'll need to be careful to avoid further damage while the poor lion dog recuperates. This is a weird addition, but coupled with the included difficulty options, it will likely help new players ease into the game more easily, which is always a good thing. The most curious addition is Joystick Mode, which in typical M2 fashion tries to replicate the arcade experience of a game, this time by requiring a single Joy-Con be held vertically for motion control. This did not work well for me, perhaps because I haven't even seen a Space Harrier cabinet in person, let alone played one. No matter which way I held it, aimed it, or recalibrated it, I had trouble moving to the right. Perhaps with dedication I could figure out what I was doing wrong, but I'm in the weird position of only ever playing Space Harrier with an analog stick, and that's the way I like it. I'm sure the error here is mine and not M2's, at least I hope, and I'm glad they're still experimenting with weird things like this nevertheless. Space Harrier's new additions, much like Monster Boy's, aren't too notable in my book, I hate to say, but I can recommend it as a game much more easily than Monster Boy. I might still favor the 3DS release of Space Harrier due to how fantastic the game works with 3D, but you can't go wrong with this release either. Unless you're just fed up with Space Harrier, you need to have it on your Switch for easy access. It's gone strong for 34 years and likely will for another 34. As for the future of Sega Ages, we're once again in the dark. At some point, us in the West will likely get Puyo Puyo, but outside of that, we're not certain what is next. We're up to 10 titles released in Japan, with 9 more on the slate. My personal bet is that in a couple months I'll be here talking about Columns 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2, but we'll see. Until next time, thank you for watching. And a super special thank you to all of the patrons who help support this video. Super special thank you.